More tonight.
Hezbollah guerrillas sent more rockets into the northern Israeli city of Haifa, and Israel responded with another furious bomber attack all across Lebanon. The crisis in the Middle East grew even worse today, and here is the latest. Casualties in Lebanon have now passed 200 dead, 400 wounded. Israel counts 24 dead, 12 of them soldiers. Britain and the UN head Kofi Annan want to put a peacekeeping force into southern Lebanon, and Russia is offering to supply some of the troops. So far, the United States has not signed on to that, but Secretary of State Rice is planning to visit the region. We have CBS News correspondents deployed throughout the Middle East tonight, and our chief foreign correspondent, Lara Logan, is anchoring our coverage from Haifa, Israel, which has been under rocket attack for most of the day. Lara?
Bob, this has been a day of terror for people here and all over northern Israel. Rockets fired from Lebanon rained down on more than 36 towns and cities, including this one, the third largest city in Israel. It was a day for quick reactions because the warning time was short. The wail of air raid sirens signaled another attack, forcing people to take cover once again. Among those crouching against the wall, Haifa's mayor. The volley of explosions had barely faded as police and emergency workers rushed to the scene of the latest attack. This time it was an apartment building, the top floors torn apart by the force of the blast. Smoke still rising into the air as the very first casualties were taken away to safety. You live in the house across the road?
Yes.
And what happened?
I heard the siren, and then I took my 4 kids to the room, the special room, the shelter. And then all of a sudden, all my windows go down.
Amidst the shattered concrete, a family's kitchen table still with chairs in place in spite of the explosion. Firefighters here are still trying to put out the flames burning inside this building. There have been pieces of debris falling off, and they're worried about it collapsing. The faces of those living here said it all. This is the first time Hezbollah has hit a residential neighborhood. Did you expect a hit like this on a residential building in Haifa?
As you probably know, during the last days we expect everything.
What Israel expects next from Hezbollah is a strike on the country's biggest city, Tel Aviv, something absolutely unthinkable here before the attacks on Haifa. The army kept up its pressure on South Lebanon from the ground, continuing to pound the area with artillery. Batteries like this one on the border have fired nearly 9,000 rockets and shells since this crisis began 6 days ago. In the propaganda war, Arab satellite channels aired these pictures and claimed they showed a downed Israeli fighter jet falling to earth. Israel denied that, releasing cockpit video they said shows the projectile was actually a long-range Iranian-made Zelzal missile that exploded into the air after they bombed a Hezbollah rocket launcher. Probably the only place in Israel where the air raid sirens sounded and nobody moved was the funeral today of Dennis Lapidus, one of the men killed yesterday in the devastating rocket attack on Haifa's train depot. While people here worried about Hezbollah's essentially unguided missiles, people in Beirut had plenty of worries of their own from precision-guided Israeli airstrikes. Elizabeth Palmer is in the Lebanese capital, where the evacuation of Americans is underway.
Yes, good evening. We've just heard more of those airstrikes you spoke about a few seconds ago. It has not let up. And as you mentioned, more than 200 people dead, most of them civilians. That's convinced a lot of foreigners, Americans included, who are wondering what to do, that it really is time to go.
Only weeks ago, it would have been unthinkable. Military helicopters flying American citizens out of Beirut, a city under siege. So far, only 64 Americans have escaped this way, but more helicopter evacuations are planned for tomorrow. In Beirut's port, a Greek ferry waited to evacuate more than 1,000 people. A seat on this chartered vessel was the hottest ticket in this war-torn town. The first buses pulled up and the mass evacuation finally began, while within earshot in Beirut's southern suburbs, Israeli jets weren't letting up. And in the south of the country, the fierce bombardment flattened houses and shattered lives. By evening, back on the dock, the lines grew longer and tension was mounting.
This is the first ship sailing to safety. It was organized by the French government to take out foreign citizens considered vulnerable, pregnant women, families with small children, and people who are sick. There are 37 Americans on board.
It was exciting to be here during all of this, but I think it's time to go.
I'm sorry I'm leaving. I feel like I've got this golden ticket to let me go, and I feel very guilty about that.
None of these people wanted to leave like this, but the French soldiers made it clear time was running out, and the Greek captain ordered everyone staying ashore off his ship. Underway at last, the passengers' regret was mixed with undeniable relief.
The U.S. military is ramping up this evacuation. There will be more helicopters, and as of tomorrow, a 900-passenger ship under charter, which will be accompanied by a destroyer to take passengers from here to Cyprus. U.S. intelligence doesn't think Hezbollah will attack an evacuation. Nevertheless, security is important, especially if thousands of people do show up.
Elizabeth Palmer in Beirut. Israel's government hinted today that a ceasefire with Hezbollah might be possible. But with the rockets still flying on either side, there was no hint of a compromise. Sharon Alfonsi is in Tel Aviv tonight.
Well, the Prime Minister of Israel addressed his country and the world tonight. He was passionate and pointed, outlining the things that needed to happen before Israel would even consider a ceasefire. You didn't have to speak Hebrew to know that Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Olmert was not talking about backing down. Today, he told the Israeli parliament that until the 2 kidnapped soldiers were returned, the rocket attacks stop, and the Lebanese army is deployed to the border, they'll have no mercy for militants. Olmert is not calling for the total dismantling of Hezbollah. The Prime Minister urged Israelis to stay strong. After a day of bomb blasts and sirens, people like Frida Zieberman needed that encouragement.
I'm very happy that I'm alive.
When we met her, she was thumbing through shrapnel from the rocket that blew out her apartment windows, destroyed her car.
You just bought this car? Yeah. A new car.
And shattered her nerves.
So you heard a boom and then your walls came in?
Yeah.
And what did you see?
I didn't see nothing. I'm black.
She's lived here all her life and says the bombs never made it this far into Israel before.
I'm very afraid, but I think I have to be strong for my children, for my people.
Just across the street, more views of lives ripped open by the same rocket. Everyone here made it out okay. But Ari Hershko didn't have much to go home to.
Glass and wood and plastic is not important. What's important is life.
Still, the look on his mother's face said it all. She was exhausted, she told us. But in control of her heart. In a war where the front line is suddenly outside your window or sometimes in your living room, that's a battle in and of itself.
If a missile from Lebanon can arrive here, then there is no security.
And Israeli military officials reported tonight that they did destroy one long-range missile that could have hit Tel Aviv. Meanwhile, the attacks, rocket attacks, continue to the north. Lara?
Sharon Alfonsi in Tel Aviv. Israel accuses both Iran and Syria of sponsoring, financing, and arming Hezbollah and encouraging the attacks that incited this conflict. Richard Roth is in the Syrian capital, Damascus.
Syria is not just anxious tonight about a conflict it never imagined would grow so big. It's also worried there's now real risk in trying to rein in the militants it sponsors.
Giving up an ounce of support for Hezbollah would infuriate thousands of Syrians who swarmed through the streets of Damascus today. President Bashar al-Assad choreographed this show, but the passion's genuine. Hezbollah is seen in this part of the world as the only armed group that's ever forced Israel to retreat, given credit for Israel's withdrawal from southern Lebanon 6 years ago. Despite the public anger, a hint of compromise behind the scenes. After meeting Syrian officials, Iran's foreign minister said it would be acceptable and fair now to end the fighting with a ceasefire and a prisoner swap between Hezbollah and Israel. The idea is not new, but coming from Hezbollah's two chief sponsors, Iran and Syria, it does send a new signal.
This signifies that nobody actually wish things to go, to the point where we have something like an all-out war in the region.
The U.S. believes if Syria put its foot down and stopped supplying Hezbollah with weapons and logistical support, the radical militia would have to back off.
But even if it wanted to, Syria may not have the muscle now to force Hezbollah to stop fighting. And with some irony here, part of the blame for that is put on U.S. policy.
Because last year, America and its allies pressured thousands of Syrian troops to leave Lebanon. The idea was to promote democracy in Lebanon, but the effect was to leave Hezbollah unchecked, virtually free to attack Israel. Syria is now warning that if this war spills over with an Israeli attack here, it'll fight back with fury, though no one believes President Assad has an appetite for a war he couldn't win.
And as much as Syria doesn't want a wider war, it doesn't want to look weak. Lara?
Richard Roth in Damascus. I'll be back with more from the Middle East later in the broadcast. But right now, our coverage continues with Bob Schieffer in New York. Bob?
Thank you very much, Lara. About an hour ago, I spoke to Undersecretary of State Nicholas Burns, who has just returned to Washington with President Bush on Air Force One. He told me we can expect to see the United States play a much more visible diplomatic role in all of this. Mr. Secretary, where is the United States on all this now? What are we going to do here?
We are in the middle of the action, Bob, trying to resolve this very serious crisis along the Lebanon-Israel border. We were just in St. Petersburg with all the leaders of the industrialized countries, and what was remarkable about that discussion was the degree of unanimity on what the problem is. Hezbollah started this, and Hezbollah has to stop the rocket attacks and return the Israeli soldiers. That will be the beginning of a diplomatic process that could lead to a resolution and a cessation of the violent activity.
In the past, we have seen shuttle diplomacy by American secretaries of state. Can we expect to see the Secretary of State begin to take a higher profile role here?
Absolutely. Secretary Rice has decided, and the President has asked her to go to the Middle East. It'll be quite soon. She'll obviously travel directly to the region, and she'll engage the leadership of the region in ways that we hope will bring an end to the fighting and bring security to Israel, and obviously bring relief to these suffering civilians in Lebanon, as well as in Israel, as well as in Gaza. So many people have suffered.
Some are saying that she also needs to talk to people in Syria, and that, in fact, the United States ought to open some kind of a dialogue with Iran. What would you say to that?
One of the remarkable aspects of the St. Petersburg meeting was that all the leaders agreed that it was these forces of extremism, groups like Hezbollah and Hamas, and the forces that protect them. And we met there Syria and Iran that are responsible for starting this problem, and they're the ones who've got to stop. We know that Syria and Iran are giving military assistance to Hezbollah. We suspect very strongly that some of these longer-range rockets that are being fired into the Israeli cities in the northern part of the country are coming from Syria and Iran. And so obviously our message tonight to both of those countries is to cease and desist from this violent activity which is contributing to so much bloodshed in that part of the world.
Now, what about this idea of putting an international peacekeeping force in there, as the UN head and as Britain is suggesting? Are we ready to sign on to that yet?
Bob, we're not quite ready to sign on to it because it's right now a rather amorphous idea. The discussion among the leaders at the St. Petersburg summit was that if the international community working through the United Nations could help to solidify the border and give confidence both to Israel and the Lebanese government that that border can be secure, that would be a major step forward.
Mr. Secretary, thank you so much.
Thank you, Bob.
Well, it has happened again. A president of the United States caught by an open microphone. You'll hear what President Bush had to say when the CBS Evening News continues in a moment.
Cholesterol. It can come from fettuccine Alfredo, but also from your Grandpa Alfredo. from barbecue ribs, and from your Aunt Barbie. A healthy diet is important. When that's not enough, adding Vytorin can help. Cholesterol comes from two sources, food and family. Vytorin treats two sources. Only Vytorin helps block the absorption of cholesterol from food and reduces the cholesterol your body makes naturally based on family history. Vytorin was also proven in clinical studies to lower bad cholesterol more than Lipitor alone. Vytorin is not for everyone, including people with liver problems, women who are nursing, pregnant, or may become pregnant. Unexplained muscle pain or weakness could be a sign of a rare but serious side effect. Vytorin may interact with other medicines or certain foods, increasing your risk of getting this serious side effect. Simple blood tests are needed to check for liver problems. So eat right, stay active. But if that's not enough, ask your doctor about adding Vytorin. Two sources of cholesterol. Treat them both with Vytorin.
Where does your mind go when you go to bed? Well, if you're like a lot of people, it doesn't go to sleep. It replays the day. It looks at what might happen tomorrow. And sometimes it gets tangled up in a list of to-dos and forgot-to-dos. Ask your doctor about Lunesta. It can give you and your restless mind the sleep you need. And non-narcotic Lunesta is approved for use night after night if necessary. Lunesta works quickly, so take it right before bed. Of course, do not use sleep medicines for extended periods without first talking to your doctor. Be sure you have at least 8 hours to devote to sleep before becoming active. Until you know how you'll react to Lunesta, you should not drive or operate machinery. Do not take Lunesta with alcohol. Most sleep medicines carry some risk of dependency. Side effects may include unpleasant taste, headache, drowsiness, and dizziness. For a great night's sleep, leave the rest to Lunesta. Ask your doctor.
Pop quiz. What midsize sedan has more space and power than Camry, has 6 standard airbags, gets up to 34 miles per gallon, and starts under $16,000? Is it A, the all-new Kia Optima, B, the brand-new Kia Optima, C, the shiny new Kia Optima, or D, all of the above? Correct! You picked the Kia Optima, and with the 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty, there really is no other choice. Hurry in and get $1,000 cash back on the all-new Kia Optima. The best value on the road.
Anyone who's ever covered an international summit or watched a diplomatic event unfold can't help but wonder, how do they talk and what do they say when the cameras shut down and the mics are off? Well, today at the summit in Russia, we got an inkling. The mics weren't off. President Bush just thought they were. Here's our White House correspondent, Jim Axelrod.
The first word that Secretary Rice would be headed to the Middle East came not from any official channels, but rather from an open microphone when President Bush was chatting with British Prime Minister Tony Blair during a goodbye lunch photo op at the G8 summit. Chomping on a dinner roll, Mr. Bush tells Mr. Blair his view of ending the crisis in the Middle East, but not in the diplomatic language of the summit.
See, the irony is that what they need to do is get Syria to get Hezbollah to stop doing this.
The president is also overheard criticizing UN Secretary General Kofi Annan.
I felt like telling Kofi to call, get on the phone with Assad and make something happen.
Mr. Blair then realized what was going on
We're not blaming
and flipped off the mic. The open mic only makes public the reality that had been emerging in private. The lack of consensus about the best way to stop the violence in the Middle East is raising tension levels among the leaders trying to come up with a plan. Jim Axelrod, CBS News, St. Petersburg, Russia.
We'll tell you about the hot weather covering most of the country and more of the day's news after these messages.
If you're over 50 and have other risk factors, you already face a greater risk of a heart attack. Ask your doctor how Bayer Low-Dose can help prevent 1 in 3 heart attacks. Be sure to talk to your doctor before you begin an aspirin regimen. She reduced her risk with Bayer, working wonders every day.
Hey, try one of these new 100-calorie packs.
It's chips. Yeah, but I bet you get, what, 3 chips in this pack?
No, you get this many. Hey!
Wow. All this for 100 calories? These are good.
New Ritz Chips 100-calorie packs from Nabisco.
Dr. Robert Jarvik, inventor of the artificial heart.
The average heart beats 2 billion times. The heart is amazing.
But high cholesterol can lead to heart disease. Lipitor can help. When diet and exercise aren't enough, adding Lipitor significantly lowers bad cholesterol, 39 to 60%. If you have several common risk factors for heart disease, Lipitor is clinically proven to reduce your risk of heart attack. And more cardiologists surveyed said they'd prescribe Lipitor for their own families than any other cholesterol-lowering brand. Lipitor is not for everyone, including people with liver problems and women who are nursing, pregnant, or may become pregnant. You need simple blood tests to check for liver problems. Tell your doctor if you are taking other medications or if you have any muscle pain or weakness. They may be a sign of a rare but serious side effect. Lipitor is one of many treatment options to consider with your doctor. It's your heart. Ask if Lipitor is right for you.
Visit Lipitor.com for a free trial.
If you use those over-the-counter drops several times a day, you may have chronic dry eye due to decreased tear production without knowing it, like me. And my doctor prescribed Restasis.
With continued use, Restasis helps increase your natural ability to produce tears, which may be reduced by inflammation due to chronic dry eye. It should not be used by patients with active eye infections and has not been studied in patients with a history of herpes viral infections of the eye. The most common side effect is a burning sensation.
More of my own tears. Thanks, Restasis.
All cars have headlights to illuminate the road ahead, but Lexus has developed a headlight that actually rotates up to 15 degrees to reveal what's around the bend before you get to the bend. What kind of a difference can 15 degrees make? A very noticeable one. Special lease rates are now available on the 2007 RX 350 for a limited time at your Lexus dealer.
America suffered today from a coast-to-coast case of sunburn. The weather map tells the story. Shades of red everywhere and a stifling heat wave. Temperature in the 90s and higher in many places made this the hottest day of the year. There was a record demand for power in steamy Chicago. A cluster of wildfires has burned up to 84,000 acres in Southern California. Firefighters are counting on the thunderstorms and high humidity forecasters are predicting to bring the fires under control. The space shuttle returned to Earth today after 13 successful days in orbit. Discovery dropped through low clouds over the Kennedy Space Center, the first shuttle to land there since before the Columbia disaster in 2003. The mission was just about flawless, and NASA says it proves it can safely resume construction of the International Space Station starting late next month. We got some sad news here at CBS News today. Our longtime friend and colleague Lee Townsend has died. Lee was the news editor of this broadcast for many years. No one was tougher about getting it right than he was, but there was never a greater gentleman than Lee Townsend. We send our condolences to his family.
When you want to finish with truly healthy hair, where do you start? Right at the source, the scalp. The totally reinvented Head & Shoulders contains 6 times the moisturizers for your scalp and hair. Healthy, flake-free hair starts at the scalp.
You're getting this potty training thing down with your Pampers Feel and Learn, the only training pant with a suspended wet sensation liner to give you an immediate signal of wetness to help you learn to stay dry. You go, girl.
New Scrubbing Bubbles Automatic Shower Cleaner is so easy. It works like this. It covers your entire shower every day, cleaning soap scum, mold, and mildew stains. Which means it also works like this. Cleans a dirty shower in days. Keeps a clean shower clean from day one. Same time tomorrow, ladies? New Scrubbing Bubbles Automatic Shower Cleaner, made for your shower. S.C. Johnson, a family company.
Journalism is a team sport, and I've known Katie Couric since she broke into journalism, and she's going to be a great addition to the CBS News team. She's tough, she's fair, she's a straight shooter. I'm heading back to Washington this fall, and I want to welcome Katie to our team. She'll be terrific. Just watch.
Lincoln Mercury has some of America's hottest selling new models. And to celebrate, every 2006 Mercury has the hottest deals of the summer during the Lincoln Mercury Celebration Clearance. Like the award-winning Mercury Milan. Now lease Milan with 0 first month's payment, 0 down, and 0 cash due at $257 a month. and just announced extended powertrain coverage for 5 years or 60,000 miles on all 2006 Mercury vehicles.
If you use those over-the-counter drops several times a day, you may have chronic dry eye due to decreased tear production without knowing it, like me. And my doctor prescribed Restasis.
With continued use, Restasis helps increase your natural ability to produce tears, which may be reduced by inflammation due to chronic dry eye. It should not be used by patients with active eye infections and has not been studied in patients with a history of herpes viral infections of the eye. The most common side effect is a burning sensation.
More of my own tears. Thanks, Restasis.
It's our red, white, and blue tag sale. Save 10, 20, up to 40% throughout the store. Carpet, tile, hardwood, area rugs, everything on sale.
Marion's has a huge selection.
And our low price guarantee. Dial 503 Carpets.
I know what you're thinking. I'm so thinking you're thinking plentiful. And there's wholesome grains, real beef, even carrots and peas. Love it so much you only think you're getting spoiled. So happy.
Healthful, flavorful, Beneful. Beneful brand by Purina.
Tomorrow, this could be the car of the future, the electric smart car. And teen drivers, parents, what you need to know to keep your kids safe behind the wheel tomorrow on The Early Show.
And we want to go back to Lara Logan in Haifa, Israel now for one more check on the crisis there. Lara, a lot of talk about diplomacy today. What's the reality on the ground?
Well, the reality, Bob, is that there's been no let-up in the military campaign here. Israeli warplanes have continued to strike targets in South Lebanon and in South Beirut into the early hours of the morning. We've been hearing the thunder of huge explosions in the distance. But there is still a chance for diplomacy because Israel doesn't want a return to all-out war. At the same time, you know, Israelis are almost universally united in backing the government in their campaign against Hezbollah. Many of them say they want the government to go all the way and finish Hezbollah off completely. Now, that's unlikely to happen, but at the very least, some kind of deal that brings home those 2 captured soldiers and removes Hezbollah forces from South Lebanon where they can attack Israel. That may be acceptable to Israelis.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Laura, and be safe now, and we'll look forward to your reports tomorrow morning on The Early Show. That's it from here. I'm Bob Schieffer, CBS News in New York. Good night.
For news 24 hours a day, click on CBSNews.com. Brought to you in part by Walmart. Walmart and Sam's Club pharmacies accept all Medicare prescription drug plans. And at the Walmart price, you get a great value for your prescription dollars. Middle East crisis on the brink. Lara Logan and a team of correspondents continue our coverage tomorrow. See why more people are watching the CBS Evening News with Bob Schieffer. See why more people are watching the CBS Evening News with Bob Schieffer. Experience CBS News.